So glad to be with you on this journey into the dark, unknown recesses of our world. And I'm really glad you're here with me. Thanks for joining us. And if you're new to the show, this is the Paranormal Portal. And if that's the show you're hoping to listen to, you're in the right place. So we got that going for us. The Paranormal Portals are forum for all things paranormal. If it's paranormal and supernatural, we'll discuss it. I just learned tonight that there's a difference between the definitions of the term paranormal and supernatural. So I kind of use them interchangeably myself, and found out that I was not necessarily right in doing so. Apparently, paranormal has more to do with spirits and earthly kind of things, and supernatural apparently has more to do with UFOs, if that's correct. But hello, Shane. Thanks for being in the chat room. Thanks for being here. And so this is our Saturday evening. Hey, Mark, again, thanks. Good to hear you or see you typing. I'm not hearing you, actually, so I had to correct that. But wonderful to be here. Wonderful to have you guys here. And on the Paranormal Portal, I always have the phone lines open, so please feel free to stop in and make a phone call and let me know how you're doing, or share with me an experience. Share with us all an experience you've had. There certainly is a whole bunch of things that we cover on the show, so anything is game. If you've seen a ghost, you've had psychic experience, if you've had a near-death experience, if you've had not a body experience, if you've had a friend that's had these things happen, whatever, share it with us and let us know, what's going on in your world. And I just love it when people call in and when they take advantage of being on the show, because it makes the experience so much more rewarding for me. And I think that there's no better stories than the firsthand stories, the things that, and I share my own. I've had a bizarre life, and I've experienced a lot of different things. And I guess I think of it as a very good thing, because I love the idea of mystery still in the world, that there's still discovery, that there's still unknowns. And I don't know what it is, but I get really almost offended when hear people or see people discard the paranormal and these experiences as just a bunch of bunk. And it's fine if it doesn't fit into a person's personal paradigm, but it's certainly not fine when people take it upon themselves to degrade and bash people for sharing their experiences. And so that's kind of the point of the show, is just to have a safe and open forum to share all our ideas and thoughts. And you're not going to agree with all of them. I'm not sure I even agree with all of them. I always try to keep an open mind, but it's how bizarre is my life. It's been plenty bizarre. I mean, I've just experienced so many things. I've experienced what I'm convinced was a close encounter with the Sasquatch. I've seen UFOs with my own eyes. I mean, I've seen it. I've had plenty of spiritual ghost experiences and plenty of psychic experiences myself. So, and like I said, I guess people might think that's bizarre. Some people may. Am I hearing like thunder? What the hell am I hearing? I don't know. I got kind of a rumble in the background here, so I don't know if it's definitely not coming from the mic, because I took off the headphones and I could hear it still. I love thunderstorms. I just love thunderstorms. And where I live in the upper Midwest, or not in the upper Pacific Northwest, rather. I'm from the Midwest originally, but we don't get a lot of thunderstorms up here, and I kind of miss them. So when I was hearing that rumble, I'm like, oh, cool. I hope it's a thunderstorm. But then again, I don't want to get knocked off the air and not be able to share the evening with you all. So I guess it's a double-edged sword. So if I disappear, maybe there's a storm blowing up. I don't know what it was. But anyway, I've had many experiences myself, and like I said, I think that I don't really get spooked or freaked out by it. It's just, I feel like, I don't know. It's almost like a gift to experience something that's so far out of the ordinary and so far out of the normal paradigm. And so to have experienced it, I feel very fortunate. And I hope that, people that call in and share on the show and maybe people that have had stuff on their chest and have nowhere to go with it, we'll choose to call in and talk, and I'll definitely listen, and I'll give you my 2 cents for whatever it's worth. So but definitely be a part of the show. So if you want to call in, please do. It's 213-233-3998. Again, that's 213-233-3998. And I'll do my best to keep an eye on it. So if you call in, just be patient. Either I see your phone call is there, and I am waiting for the right time to fit it into the show, or I haven't seen it quite yet, but I will soon. So be patient with me. And additionally, if you'd like to be a part of the Paranormal Portal and Truth Frequency Radio experience, always during any of the shows that are on, there's a fantastic group of people, and this is around the clock every day of the week as far as I've seen. But join the TFR chat room, and it's truthfrequencyradio.com/chat. And you can log in with your Facebook and get to know a bunch of amazing people. And I'm just thrilled to have them as part of my experience. And they've been an integral part of the show as it's grown and developed and stuff. And I bounce ideas off of them. And sometimes they're just my guinea pigs. So anyway, but I think it's wonderful. So I got things beeping at me here, and I'm trying to figure out what it is. So I apologize, but I'm all multimedia up in here. It's just crazy. So definitely call in, join the chat room, stop in. If you have an experience that you'd like to share but would rather not be on the radio, like it's not your thing or you feel too shy or whatever, just email it to me, or even your thoughts on the show or ideas for future shows. I love it when people write in and say, do a show about this. This is something I'm really interested in. And if I don't know about it, I'll spend some time and educate myself as well and pull together material. But the email for the show is paranormalportal4u, number 4 letter U @gmail.com. So write in and let me know what's going on. And if you had an experience and you don't want to be identified, that's fine too. I don't have to read your name on the air. We can change it or do whatever. So I've had a lot of amazing conversations with listeners and gotten to know them and really appreciate their contributions to the show. And if you listen back to the archives, which are available on truthfrequencyradio.com, you can hear some of the listener letters that were written in and some of their experiences, and really, really cool. And one guy, Ken, even like I read it on the show, read his experience on the show, and he went back and had a bunch of illustrations, and he made a YouTube video out of it. It's really cool. And I'm really excited for him to do some more of those because it just added such a cool element to it. So thanks, Ken. So what else am I missing? Oh yeah, we're on Facebook. So please follow the show. We just hit 100 or 300 people following the show, which isn't a huge number, but I'm kind of a social media, I don't know, noob in many ways. Like I use it a lot, but just for keeping up and seeing what's going on in the world. I don't do a lot of active posting, but I'm getting better at it. And we hit 300 people following the show, which is really cool. So thank you all those of you who have followed the show. But if you haven't, stop by and do it. I use that forum a lot for posting videos or articles or things that I've learned about and throwing them out there. In fact, tonight I just posted a video. It's really cool, and it's on the well, I suppose I should give you the page name, right? So it's facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. And tonight, as I was saying, I just posted a video from in the United Kingdom. There's a TV show called Most Haunted, and I've caught them a few times. I don't see them often over here in America, but I think they do a decent job. And as far as it goes, I enjoy ghost shows a lot on TV. So I'm sorry, I'm a little hoarse. I was running around singing earlier and screaming, and so doing my best Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. No, I'm kidding. I can't sing that high, but I was singing aloud, so I guess I'm hoarse, and I apologize for that. But Most Haunted I just found out about it tonight, and I don't know when it exactly happened, but they caught a really cool full-bodied apparition on video, and so I posted the YouTube video on the page, and I think it's a phenomenal catch, and I think it's legitimate from what I can see. And again, anytime you see anything on the internet, you got to it's kind of a leap of faith. But anyway, as far as I can see, it doesn't look like anything obviously hokey or hoaxy. So it looks pretty great. So check it out. Stop by the Facebook page and check it out. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. So the first thing tonight's show is going to be kind of a paranormal grab bag. And last night we did a show about the puckwudgies, which are little 2 to 3 foot tall creatures that are legendary in the U.S. and have a long history and sightings from hundreds of years ago up till modern day. So these things are still popping up all over the place. But it was a great show and really cool, and got a lot of great feedback on it. And I know it's a lesser known phenomenon, but I think it's really, really fun to explore some of the lesser known phenomenon as well. It can't always be Bigfoot and ghosts and all that stuff. It's kind of, there's a whole realm of paranormal out there and a whole realm of experience that people are having. And I think the lesser known phenomenon can even be a lot of fun because it teaches people about what's possible out there. Whether or not it's real is up to you to decide, but people are having these experiences. And so it just speaks to a large world of unknown out there. And I think that's wonderful. So tonight I wanted to kind of open the show with a clip I found on YouTube, and it was from a channel. The channel's called Esoteric Detective. And I think they do a fantastic job, and please check them out on YouTube. They did a real nice job. And essentially the reason why I wanted to start with this is because a lot of these things, creatures that are rumored to be in the woods, I mean, there's so many different kinds. It's not just Bigfoot. It's not just Dogmen. It's there's Wendigos. There's, so many other things that are out there. There's even frogmen, little humanoid creatures that look just like frogs hopping around. And there are so many different types of creatures, but there's also so many people disappearing in the woods. And I've mentioned it on the show before. A gentleman by the name of David Paulides has done a series of books called Missing 411, and where he's documented all these strange and unexplained disappearances in our national parks in the U.S. And so this channel, this Esoteric Detective, did a really, really cool video, and it's one of those computer voices that it sounds like it's an English accent, but it does okay, but those kind of irritate me. So take that for whatever you will, but I wanted to play it for you and let you hear more about the phenomenon rather than me just trying to paraphrase the strangeness of these accounts that David Paulides documents so well in his books Missing 411. So have a listen.
All around the world, people go missing in national parks all the time, but what the general public don't know is that a percentage of those people that go missing do so in a very strange and sinister way. This small percentage was brought to light by former police detective David Paulides, who started researching these cases and found a sinister, upsetting pattern.
Nearly here, which means millions of people will be heading for national parks and national forests. As it turns out, a few of them won't be coming back.
Each year, hundreds of people are reported missing in our parks and forests. Most are eventually found, but there's a smaller category of cases that never get solved, including a few close to home. The I-Team's George Knapp is here with the story. George.
It's not a revelation to say that people get lost out in the wilderness or in forest areas. We're talking about a different kind of mystery, though. Disappearances that are not caused by predator attacks or criminals hiding out there in the woods or just bad luck. A former cop has put together hundreds of case files regarding clusters of missing persons in national parks where the circumstances are flat out strange. But don't...
Stay tuned as Esoteric Detective brings you 6 things we know about the clusters of missing people in national parks. Number 6. People go missing from right beside family members in broad daylight. It is like they just vanish. Sometimes the bodies of the individuals are found miles from the location where they went missing. So far, in fact, that it is not possible for them to have got to the location. That is, people are found miles up the sides of mountains, without any clothing on, such distances from where they went missing that they would have needed a helicopter to have got there, in the time frame since their disappearance. To put this into perspective, let's take the case of Cullen Finnerty, who was found dead, under strange circumstances in 2013. Finnerty was a football player who was a giant man who was from the Midwest. The New York Times would eulogize that he was perhaps the most successful quarterback in college football history. At 6'2" and 240 pounds of solid muscle, by all accounts, Finity was your all-around tough American guy. He had a character which people said was stoic and strong, and people never saw him afraid of anything. That was until he decided to go fishing alone one day on May the 26th, 2013 in the Baldwin River, deep in the Manistee National Forest Park. Early in the morning of that day, Finity's wife received a phone call from him, which was not the stoic and strong man that she knew. Finity was frantically telling his wife how he was being followed, and was extremely afraid. During the last call, his wife was able to have him give her the coordinates from his phone. But when friends and family went to the location, he was not there. When the police got involved, Finity's cell phone, which had a global positioning system, was traced by the cell phone company to help get a true lock on his position. It is worth noting that margin for error on a GPS transmitter is 50 to 100 feet, but when the cell phone company pinged Finity's phone, the coordinates that came back placed his phone in 4 different locations. Although the pings were within minutes of each other, the locations were 4.37 miles apart. Finity was later found, miles from the location of where his cell phone said he was, with much of his clothing missing, his fishing suspenders around the wrong way, as if he had been undressed and reclothed, and without any footwear. To this day, it is unknown why he was so afraid, and why he was found in such an unusual manner. The official report rules the death as pneumonia, but it neglects the other strange evidence. The fact that Finity said he was being followed, the fact he had been undressed, and the fact that his cell phone location put him in 4 places at the same time. Number 5. This is not just happening in the United States, but is happening around the world. In fact, strange events that match the strange clusters of missing people have been found as far afoot as New Zealand and Australia. It is hard to tell the true scale of the people that go missing in the forests in such a strange way, but there are enough countries that match cases and clusters in the United States that there is no doubt that the mystery is global. Number 4. Strange dark storms have something to do with the people going missing. Witnesses describe a dark storm that made them afraid, and sometimes a thick sudden mist. The mist descends and then the people are gone. Those that are found alive often are only people that cannot talk, such as very young children, or people with speech impairments. In another recent video, which will be linked at the end of this one, you can see how a group of lighthouse keepers in the Flanner Islands described a similar storm that made them afraid, in their journal logs, before they went missing. The lighthouse keepers in this case, however, were never found. Number 3. The people often go missing in places that tribal people believe are cursed or evil, and have ancient tribal names to match. And also search dogs cannot find these missing people. When people go missing under these strange circumstances, dogs that search the area turn up nothing. It's like the missing individual's own scent left the area along with them. The search and rescue services also turn up nothing. Then, equally as mysteriously, the people turn up in areas that had already been thoroughly searched. Number 2. The missing are found dead in mysterious, unnatural ways. David Paul Lyades describes one account of a boy who was found melted into a fence. That is, melted to a fence like candle wax. There are also descriptions of strange lights in the sky, and reports of UFO activity by those lucky enough to be left as witnesses. Number 1. There is a cover-up, and it involves the government. Evidence for this comes in the form that, regarding the missing person clusters, the United States Park Service will do everything it can not to give out records of any missing people, even to those engaged in investigations with the police. The United States Parks Service seem to guard what is happening like it is a matter of national security. When a government agency is blocking information about those dying in the national parks, it does lead one to believe that there is some kind of cover-up happening, as these records are almost certainly a matter of public interest.
The individual cases are strange enough, Paulides says, but stranger still were the reactions of federal agencies when he asked for public records.
And when we FOIA'd them, we got a response back that they don't keep any lists of missing people.
The response was not only no, but hell no, he says. So he began putting his own list together and discovered what appears to be nearly 30 clusters of disappearances in national parks and forests, cases which meet a narrow set of odd characteristics.
What do you think is happening? And what do you think the Park Service is hiding? Do you think that there is something truly sinister going on? Or is this just a case of something that looks strange, because we have so little information? Stay tuned and subscribe to Esoteric Detective to keep up to date with the strange and unusual.
And so that's the video, and they did a nice job of I guess encapsulating the whole phenomenon of these people disappearing, and there's no clear indication of what it is. Is it UFO? Is it some cryptid out there nabbing people? Is it, something spiritual and nefarious? Is it some kind of portals? Nobody knows. But the fact remains that there's thousands of people that go missing, and they all meet these strange criteria. So there's some kind of phenomenon at work out there. And so I wanted to open with that because I think it ties into the possibility of some of these strange, creatures that are dwelling out in the forests and wildlands of our and other countries. So I thought it was very good. I hope you enjoyed that. And it was a little bit long. And again, I'm not real fond of those computer generated narrations, but I guess it's better than having, somebody fumble through words like I do often on my own show. But it makes for part of the fun. Good morning, Lichty. It's nice to see you. And welcome back, Marshall. Thanks for being here. So again, stop by the chat room if you get a chance. There's just such great people in there. And they're always saying hello, good morning, hey, how's it going? I just love them all. Brings a little love into my heart. So tonight we're going to kind of continue the journey into the strange goings-ons, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with any specific cryptid or phenomenon. It's just there are things out there we don't understand, and so and for the record, I'm putting together a show on the jinn. That it's spelled DJINN, and it's a kind of creature or being or spirit that's talked about a lot in the Quran, and a lot of they are the source of the legend of genies that we know from popular culture and from popular children's stories. But there's apparently people running into these, and I don't know that there's a lot of differentiation between them and any other type of spirit, but they seem to be incredibly powerful, incredibly intelligent, and usually not real fond of people. So I'm working on that, and that'll be on an upcoming show at some point in the near future. Excuse me. So welcome to the Paranormal Portal Story Time. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Please enjoy the show as I fumble through many polysyllabic words and mispronounce many strange and unusual places here for your listening pleasure on the Paranormal Portal. I do that often, and that's tough, but actually we're going to pick it up after the break, ladies and gentlemen, so don't go away. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us. Tonight's show is all about strange cryptid creatures and not any one specific type, and even some spiritual stories are thrown in there just because it's kind of a paranormal grab bag tonight. So the first story I want to read you is we ran over something, but it didn't die. And this story comes from reddit.com, humanoid encounters. And have a listen and see what you think. This voice is gonna be fun. This happened about 5 years ago in Spain, Castilla to be more specific. It was me and my friend, which I will call A from now on. They chose a letter instead of a pseudonym. That's great. I will call him A. So this person and their friend are in the car. Excuse me. Summer was ending and we were going to visit another friend that spent the entire summer in his country house. I will refer to him as B. Okay. Great. I drove at night and switched with my friend during the day, so we couldn't stop anywhere. There are small towns, but they're separated by too much distance. When we picked B, I assume picked him up, but when we picked B, he told us to rest while he drove. I decided to sleep in the back since I was the one who drove at night. I woke up when I felt the hit and heard my friend screaming about running over something. But instead of stopping to check, B sped up and got us away from there. I looked back and caught a glimpse of the silhouette of a person with the spine horribly broken, making the upper body hang in one side. And apparently they had a picture. But it snapped back into place and the thing walked out of the road. That is all I got for this story of mine. Posting it here made me feel better, since none of my friends who were there want to talk about it. B, who was driving when it happened, attends art school, so I will keep asking him to draw that thing. And then they have an update. It says, I'm finally back, and this is as empty as I remember. I spent about 3 hours checking the area where I think it happened. No results. Then I went away from the road and found an animal skull, maybe from a horse. I don't think it's related, but it's still weird. Took it with me back. He's to get some pics. Okay, well that's weird. I think if you run over something and you look in the rearview mirror and it's standing up with a broken spine and then straightens out, continuing to drive is probably a pretty good call. So, and again, I can't vouch for the authenticity or honesty of any of these stories, but I can only find them and share them with you. And even if only 10% of them are true, that's pretty creepy. This one's called Strange Experience While Fishing on Girlfriend's Property. And it's under the heading of Invisible Entity. So we'll see what they have to say. All right, I'll try to be as accurate as possible. This happened 12 years ago, so some details are blurred. My girlfriend at the time lived in a small ranch-style house on the tip of a long acreage plot. I would often take my shotgun and fishing pole to the large pond in the back of the property. It was close to the fence marking the property line. Anyway, I'm sitting next to the pond just casting and reeling for some carp when I get this wave of fear. It was an instantaneous, oh, and then they use a profanity word, which I'm not going to read on the air. Oh, damn. Feeling that I only ever experienced once before when I saw that I was about to wreck my car. Well, I reeled up my line and attached the lure to the catch at the bottom when I heard the leaves rustling down the bank on my right. I leaned out past the tree I was next to and could clearly see the leaves being kicked up by something, but it wasn't there. I could see the leaves moving, but I couldn't see anything. For a couple of moments, I thought it was just a rodent under all the dead leaves, so I let out a big sigh of relief, and whatever was moving froze. At this point, the adrenaline was making me shaky, but I wanted to walk over and see what was moving around in the leaves. When I picked up my shotgun, I chambered a shell just in case. It was a snake or something. Lots of copperheads on our property. And as soon as the shell clicked into place, this thing took a step behind the tree it was closest to. Now bear with me, but I could see an outline, like when you record over an old VHS and you can still see the previous movie a little bit. It was an outline of a person leaning out and staring at me. Me, being a moron, said, "I see you seeing me." And this thing startles and ducks behind the tree. And when I realized it was intelligent in some way, I went into full panic mode. I fire a shell from the hip at the tree and take off running back to the house. It's about 3/4 of a mile back, and my ears are ringing like crazy from firing. I slow down a bit to trot to catch my breath and compose myself and try to think of an excuse to explain why I fired a round when I hear it. This thing was running at me, and its footfall was incredibly heavy. It honestly sounded like a football player with a plastic on plastic sound that the pads make. Excuse me. I rack another round and fire where I think I hear it, but at this point it seemed completely invisible. I take off towards the house, and my girlfriend and her younger brother are just inside the entrance to the pasture I was in. They are probably about 200 yards off when she screams and points to my left, and her brother run back to the house. I finally clear the gate and slam it behind me before the final sprint to the house. When I got inside, she told me she could see dirt and leaves being absolutely torn up behind me, but couldn't see anything. Her brother confirmed, and I felt nauseated from the fact that they saw something too. Still makes me a little shaky to think about it. Anyway, that's my weird story. So, and he says, and then edit, I forgot to mention this, but the next morning we all went out together to the field because I wanted to find its tracks, and swear to God, it looked like it had covered them up. We only ever found a few indentations around the tree I spotted it around, but even those had been scuffed and covered in leaves and pine needles. Yeah, that's horrible. And I know that there are many people that believe perhaps Bigfoot and other creatures can appear or disappear at will, and so maybe what he's seeing was a Sasquatch or some other hominid like that. But in any case, I don't know what would explain the slapping noises of what sound like plastic pads, but it's clearly has to be very unnerving. The next one is black-eyed thing followed me. And this is under the tag of unidentified. I think anything with solid black eyes is pretty unnerving. So this is from 1994, Navajo Summit, Arizona. It was a cold evening. I had my two nieces with me. One was 6, the other 8. I had gone to our family cabin waiting on my sister to return from town. The evening started about 7 p.m. We didn't have a key to the house. We waited for a couple of hours. The girls eventually fell asleep in my truck. As the night grew later, the temperature also dropped. I fell asleep as well. I woke up around 9:30 p.m. It was very cold in the truck. I started the vehicle, and as I depressed the brake pedal to start the truck, I noticed in the side mirror a face looking at me from the glow in the taillight. Oh, jeez. I hesitated to look at first, but gathering enough courage to look, I saw a white face with a long, gray, white hair, black eyes looking at me. I freaked. Once I started the truck, I sped off, heading to the highway. Not sure if what I saw was following us. It was. I felt it as it jumped into the bed of my truck. I turned west to head towards a town called Ganado. I don't know, it's a Ganado. I went as far as I could to my parents' house. Upon reaching the turnoff, I noticed it jump out of the truck and run along the right-of-way fence. As I pulled up to the house, I quickly carried my nieces inside. Once inside, I situated the girls for bed. Later that night, I dreamed I walked about 2 miles to my aunt's house. No one was home. As I walked back home, I noticed this thing paralleling me. I quickly ran home, went inside and locked the door behind me, and went to bed. And as I woke the next morning, I noticed sand and dirt at the foot of my bed. I told my parents of what had happened and of what I had dreamed. They took me to a medicine man, and he told me that I actually sleepwalked to my aunt's house. And when I entered the house, it followed me in. Totally freaked me out. Yeah, that's horrible. I have sleptwalked in my life, and I'm here to tell you I had never done it growing up, and I had never experienced this for a long, long time, but I was going through quite a long period of time where I couldn't sleep, and I still have trouble sleeping soundly for any length of time, but I get like pockets of sleep through the night. But what's happened is that I wake up so deeply tired that I actually fall asleep as I'm like maybe walking to the bathroom or walking to get a drink or something, and then I'll wake up and be in some weird position, like almost walking into a wall or a chair or something. It's just really strange. It's very weird, but it's been something that I haven't experienced a lot, but it's happened, and I don't know if it's if it's just a figment of being sleep deprived and partially aware and partially not, and then falling asleep while I'm walking, but it's incredibly weird. So I know how weird that feels. I don't know if any of you guys sleepwalk or not, but it can actually be dangerous. And I know I've fallen over some things a few times, and that's a whole weird experience to be sound asleep and then to wake up to your own body hitting the floor. It's like, oh God. But like I said, it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it's a little humiliating and a lot uncomfortable. The next one is called, I know this isn't technically a humanoid, but it scared the hell out of me. And let's see, what do we got? 12 minutes? Yeah, we should be good. All right, I know this is a creature from mythology, and it's a religious related, but this is a true encounter. Yes, I was young, but I remember this because I was horrified for days. It seems weird. Things love to follow me, as I have other encounters too, but they were with ghosts, not humanoids or cryptids. When I was young, around 5 or 6, which is when all of my strange, almost unexplainable encounters have happened, oddly enough, I was riding my bike down the sidewalk of my apartment building. It was summer, so I had just finished school, and I was pretty happy with life. I was a strange little girl, even for my age, so I didn't have many friends. I know what that's like. One of my only friends were my imaginary friends, which I played with a lot. One of them I saw turned out to not be an imaginary friend at all, or so I think. After riding for a few minutes back and forth on the sidewalk, I see a very large, all-black dog, which resembles a Rottweiler, standing just beyond the apartment building I live in. I love all animals, especially dogs, so I quickly squeal with childish joy and get off my bike, approaching the huge dog. I remember saying something along the lines of, "Hi, puppy," and approaching it. This dog was no puppy. It was bigger than I was, and was growling under its breath. I walked over to the dog, and when I got a good look at it, it did resemble a Rottweiler, sure, but its eyes were all blood red and glowing, as well as the fact it looked like it was made of shadows and darkness or something. Of course, this made me stop. When the dog thing barked so loud it made my ears hurt. Obviously, I I noped out of there and ran back, leaving my bike. I had never run so fast, and my legs were a little bit deformed, so I hated running unless I absolutely needed to. Of course, a demon dog thing is the best possible reason to be running, wouldn't you say? I just remembered this a couple weeks ago, and I asked my friend Cadence about this, and since she really loves dark and satanic things. She lives several thousand miles away in a state far from where I live in Washington State. So I called her on Hangouts and told her what I just typed. We discussed and researched for a while, and she said that I must have seen a hellhound. I had heard of hellhounds before, but I never thought I would actually see one. A hellhound is essentially a dog from hell, kind of like a Cerberus, I think. And if you see one, you're supposed to die, or something bad will happen. About 3 years after I saw the hound, and around the same town, my parents got in another huge fight, and they broke up. I still don't know if this is a weird coincidence or something like that, but I have no idea. I decided to post this, and I really don't know if it's good. If it sounds as real as it was, or if I sound like I'm a lying idiot. Can I please have some feedback? There are many accounts of these black, seemingly shadow dogs or whatever, and there was a couple in a retirement community, and I think they were in Palm Springs, and they were on one of the television shows like Monsters in America or something like that, and they were retired and living in a nice home, and what is relayed in the account is the man was seeing or hearing dogs howling or wolves howling or something, and went outside to look, and there was a pack of like 3 or 4 of these dark, shadowy dogs running much faster than a dog runs and flying around this neighborhood like as if they were looking for something or someone. It was the way he related, and essentially they chewed the hell out of his car and ended up like the metal of the car, not just like a plastic bumper or something, but they were like biting holes in the quarter panels and tearing the metal and such. It was allegedly very aggressive, and I think he found tracks, and they were rather large, but as he described them, they were all black like that, and I believe had glowing eyes as well. And it's been a while since I've seen it, and I'm certainly paraphrasing the tale, but nonetheless, if you see a dark, shadowy, fogged-looking dog with red glowing eyes, I would avoid it. I don't think you can milk bone your way out of that one, but I could be wrong. So now we got about 6 minutes. Let's see, I can get through this one. This one's called Good Thing He Grabbed Him. My dad used to get up around 3 a.m. every morning for work. Starting at a very early age, I would wake up on my own and wander downstairs to see him before he left. One morning when I was about 4 years old, I made it to the bottom of the stairs and noticed that the front door was ajar. I opened it up and saw my father in his favorite work shirt making his way down the driveway to his truck in his typical work outfit, which is plaid shirt and dickies. I swung the door open and wide and yelled for him to come back and for a hug before he left. He slowly turned around and just stared at me and started walking back towards the house. He was looking so strangely at me, and it started to scare me, and I began to crying and asking what was wrong. Just as he had almost reached me, a pair of arms encircled me from behind in a bear hug. I turned my head to see the understandably freaked out father staring at his doppelganger in the same outfit. The double took one look at my dad and ran down the driveway. Meanwhile, my dad yanked me in the house and locked the door. Weirdest morning ever. Never did quite figure out that one. I would not trust my 4-year-old memory of the event if it wasn't also witnessed by my father. He won't really talk about it these days, but my mom has since told me that he called out of work and she spent the day reassuring him he wasn't a nutcase. Yeah, that's all kinds of creepy, and you gotta wonder, what was it there for? Doppelgangers are really common in a lot of haunting cases, and it's one of the reasons that I guess I can get my head around the idea, like the Pukwudgies last night are considered to be magical creatures, and they are known to shapeshift, and so perhaps if they are more spirit, that makes sense that that they could do that, and maybe they're not as much a part of the physical world as we are, and so maybe they retain some of that spiritual ability in order to change their appearance. But if you think about hauntings and you think about apparitions, people see full-bodied apparitions. Many times they see them as if they are physically there in 3D reality, and as if they could just reach out and touch them. They are that real and that profoundly present. And so if a spiritual creature can do this and manifest itself so perfectly there and solid that, perhaps it's not as odd to think that there could be creatures that live in this world that can also manifest energy in that regard to change an appearance. So I don't know, because sometimes when I've read about these shape-shifting, and these legendary stories of shape-shifting, it seems so foreign to my mind and so hard to get your mind around. But when you look at it from a vantage point of energy manifestation, and you think about ghosts being able to do it, then maybe it's not such an uncommon thing, and maybe it's not so hard to imagine, because these ghosts don't even have a solid form to start with, and yet are able to generate enough energy to appear as if they are flesh and blood. So, but then you have to wonder, okay, so this child sees her father, who turns around and clearly is not her father. It looks exactly like him, dressed exactly like him, but is not him. What was the point? Was it one of those cases where it was going to grab the child? Was that the point of it? Was it a point that it just wanted to shake up somebody's world? I don't know. I always look into what could be the cause? What could be the reason this is happening? What is it trying to do? Is it a method of predation to grab people by appearing as something else? Is it a method of just wanting to shake up people's paradigms, to create fear, to feed on? I don't know. But these are things I definitely think about, and I wonder, because it seems to me there has to be a reason for these things to happen, other than just random, empty events. These are profound events that have some purpose, some goal in mind. And what is that? I don't know. But those are all things that I think about, because I think that's in our nature, to try to understand. These are, such different and foreign concepts, but they happen. So why do they happen? What is it all about? Is it just a wake-up call from the universe to say, hey, there's more to this. You're not seeing it all. Is it a profound spiritual event that's meant to teach us? That's the other side of it. Maybe it's not dark at all. Maybe it's just a shock to stir up somebody's paradigm, to get them to start looking at the world with more complete vision. Because we as people end up living our lives in a tunnel. We're in this tunnel of 9 to 5s and Monday through Fridays, and these wild weekends where we try to make up for being programmed in this machine for the rest of the week. And maybe the universe sends us things like this, sends us stories of encounters and experiences to just go, wake up, there's more. And that'd be cool. I mean, if that was the end result, if that's the end game of it, to just remind us, then that's pretty amazing. But man, some of these stories are just so creepy, and it's hard to imagine, ever looking at anything the same way again. But again, that could be the point, could be the reason. So we are going to head to another break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back for the second hour of the show. So don't go away. Well, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and thrilled to be here with you, keeping you up late. And thanks for staying up late with me and missing out on your beauty sleep, to sharing some stories of spookiness and other paranormal hijinks, as it were. Hope you're having a good night. I hope you're having a good weekend. It's been a great weekend so far for me. It's a beautiful day here, and I got to get out and kind of recharge my batteries in the great forested areas of our Pacific Northwest here. I guess it's called the Inland Northwest, and that's more of a localized definition of where I live, but it's right on the tip of Idaho. Almost, you could almost throw a rock and hit Canada from here. So it's really beautiful, mountainous, and gorgeous, and lots of streams and wildlife, and really cool area. I must admit, it's like living in a postcard. But this last winter sucked a whole bunch, because I gotta tell you, I must have shoveled about 4 million pounds of snow. I don't have a huge sidewalk or anything. It was just snowing so much. And it was cold, but not Minnesota cold. If you're at all familiar with the upper Midwest, cold there is a whole different kind of hell. That's like 40 below wind chills, and I don't know, it makes me want to go back in time and slap my ancestors. That's all I got to say. Why did you stop here? You should have gone to someplace with sand, palm trees. So when it warms up, it's an extra special event for me, having grown up in a long lifetime of harsh winters. So, and it's all right. It builds character or something like that. So I'm told. Yeah, I did freeze, Stacy. I froze for many years up there. It's really bizarre because it's got to be some of the most drastic temperature shifts on the face of the planet in places like Minnesota, because it can be over 100 degrees in the summer and humid as hell, but in the winter it can be 40 below. And so, what is that, a 140 degree variation through a year season? That is incredible. But yeah, cold makes us hardy people. You're right, Tom. I guess it does, probably. I'm hardy as hell, I guess. But I'm ready for the tropical good life. So someday I'm gonna just end up on a beach somewhere with an umbrella drink and a great view, and maybe a hammock. I love hammocks. I don't know. Anyway, this isn't a story of my dreams and retirement plans. So sorry to digress there, folks. But this is the Paranormal Portal, and I will get back into the realm of the paranormal now. We're going to continue on our journey hammocks. Oh, let me tell you. We're going to continue our journey into the strange creatures and goings-ons. Goings-ons? I don't know if that's a actual phrase, but it is right now, ladies and gentlemen, because I reinvent the English language daily. Just stick around, you'll learn new words that never existed before I utter them. And I'll play them off as if they're real. I will. I'm not afraid to go there. So this one is called, Does Anyone Remember a Photo of a Predator-Style Creature? Let me check the calling board. Nobody's calling. And ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open if you'd like to share any of experiences of your own. Call-in number is 213-233-3998. That's 213-233-3998. Call now. But wait, there's more. If you call now within the next 10 minutes, I'll give you an extra paranormal encounter read in the voice of my choosing. I don't know. I gotta humor myself. So this one's called, Do You Remember a Photo of the Predator-Style Creature? And I have no idea how this is going to work, but we're going to read it and see what happened. I remember an interview with a guy or something like that on Coast to Coast AM, who, along with his wife, saw something that looked like the Predator movie creature, and they took a photo. I remember when I Googled the wife's name, I found the pic, and there were forums debating whether or not this is real or not. So it gave me the impression it is a somewhat known case in the paranormal cryptid humanoid community, and was hoping somewhere here recognizes what I'm trying to describe. So apparently the person was just looking for this photo, but they did find it. So let me see if I can pull it up here. And that's a really bizarre picture. I was going to post it in chat, but it's so strange that I don't know that it's possible to make out anything. Looks like somebody has a thread of like from a shirt or something just hanging too close to the lens of the camera. And so I'm not going to waste your time posting that. And I'm sorry that I picked that story because I thought it was going somewhere cool. But on the other side of this, I do have to mention that there is a video on YouTube, and the lady's name is Barb Schumann, and she lives in Washington State, which is near here. And she's a person that practices habituation for Bigfoot. And if you're not familiar with the practice, basically what habituation is that they are trying to I don't know, get to know Bigfoot in their area by over a course of time and by leaving gifts of food and other items that they may find interesting or whatever. And Barb's been at it for a long time, and she does a series of videos it's called Barb and Gabby. And Gabby's actually her, I think it's a black lab or some kind of dog anyway. But she's got a group of people out in the woods with her in one of these videos, and they're going to the habituation site, and she's explaining to this group of individuals something that had happened, or perhaps this group is also involved with her in the habituation. But anyway, she's holding the camera, or somebody's holding the camera, and they're looking towards this forested scene in front of them. And in the video, you see this little being, but it's not visible. It's like, for lack of a better term, I'll just borrow what they used on this last story. It looks like a little miniature predator, like a 2 to 3 foot tall creature that looks like the invisible predator, and suddenly it moves a little bit, shifts, and then ducks down and runs under the log and disappears. Now, what I know of Barb is she's a real down-to-earth, real person, and she's not the type that would hoax something. So I consider it very legitimate just based on what I know of her. And seeing the video, I don't see how it was hoaxed or how it was, made to look like anything else with any kind of CGI. It was just her out there and them responding to what they are seeing, and you can see it on the video as well. Very, very cool, and that could perhaps be, one of those puckwudgies, is they're allegedly able to, use spiritual powers and magic. So I just thought it was really interesting, and if you'd like to find it, just look for Barb and Gabby and look for, Invisible Creature on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll find it, and it's a very cool video. As a side note, I would like to caution any of you out there about habituation. It's I don't know that it's a very well thought out practice, and that I know that the people doing it are doing it for all the right reasons, and I commend them and salute them for that they're trying to, build a rapport with these beings to, better understand or learn or whatever, to create these connections of, of kindness and goodwill towards these other beings in the forest. But the problem with that is there's so many horror stories out there of people who've done the practice of habituation, either intentionally or unintentionally. And by unintentional, I mean like people with ranches will have their molasses feed in a bucket on the side of a barn, and they'll notice it going down really rapidly, and so they've moved it to another location on the farm that's able to secure it, and suddenly things are getting broken, and they're having all kinds of problems with these allegedly Bigfoot that were coming and snacking on this that couldn't get to it anymore, and were basically throwing tantrums. And this is a roughly 800-pound powerhouse having a tantrum, so it's a whole bunch of ugly. The next one is called, Can Someone Help Me Explain a Recent Experience? So can someone help me explain a recent experience? Approximately a year ago, I heard of this thing, I'm not even sure what to call it, that just went by the name of the Whistler. If he is in the same area as you, or if he is hunting you down, you will hear him whistling. The louder it is, the further away he is, and vice versa. Excuse me. Last Monday, I was leaving school, just walking down the road with earphones in, and I'm listening to fairly loud music. And I heard whistling, louder than everything else. I looked around me, and nobody was whistling, but it would not stop. I paused my music, and it did not stop. As I got further down the road, it eventually finished, but instantly, I was reminded of the story of the Whistler, and it's safe to say it was my most uncomfortable walk home ever. If anyone can help me shed some light on what it could have happened, whether I'm losing my mind thanks to investigating cryptids and paranormal activity since I first owned my own laptop, or maybe if I seriously did encounter something, which, to be honest, I don't think I did this time, as there were too many people around, which is different to my previous experiences. So I'm not familiar with a being called the Whistler, and not familiar with anything that whistles while it's hunting people, but I know that the Native Americans in the area that I grew up in, which is the southern part of Minnesota, they always considered it bad luck or a bad omen or bad to whistle after dark, as they believed it would attract negative spirits. So I don't know if that's true or not, but just relating what I've heard. The next thing we're going to cover is it's the Pope Lick monster, which is basically a goat man type of monster. And I really hadn't read too much about this ahead of time, or this article, but I am familiar with this, and I think the Pope Lick monster is a goat-like being that specifically hangs around these railroad trestles that are abandoned, or not abandoned, but that hangs around these railroad trestles that are quite far up in the air, and will try to lure people out there, which then get hit by trains. And I don't know what to think about it, but when it comes to urban legends, I guess I should say where I'm reading this from. This is from theportalist.com. Theportalist.com. Portalist.com. And it's Clovenhoof Cryptids, Legend of the Maryland Goatmen, and the Pope Lick Monster. I'm so sorry, I'm so hoarse. No more singing before the show. That's all there is to it. Oy. When it comes to urban legends, there's a tendency for certain themes and motifs to reoccur. This pattern has been cited by cryptozoologists and paranormal investigators many times over the years, used as evidence both for and against the truth of the stories being presented. One such reoccurrence is in the frequency of stories about goatmen, which have been cited in places as varied as Texas and Wisconsin. Oddly enough, the picture that Lucky chose to make the promotional poster about tonight, which can be found on the Facebook page as well, is or my Facebook page, I think. I posted on Brent Thomas. I don't know if I did post it on Paranormal Portal as well, but the top image is of a goat-type monster. And that was legendarily alleged to be captured on a trail camera. So, one such reoccurrence is in the frequency of stories about goatmen, which have been cited in places as varied as Texas and Wisconsin. In fact, stories of goat-like humanoids go back at least as far as the satyrs of ancient Greek myth. Excuse me. And have ties to typical portrayals of the Christian devil, but perhaps the two most famous goat-like cryptids in America bear some other striking similarities: the Maryland Goatmen and the Pope Lick Monster, which reportedly lurks near Louisville, Kentucky. Excuse me. Screams that only the devil himself would make, the Maryland Goatmen. Maryland Goatmen of Prince George's County, Maryland, has been cited since the 1950s and is probably the best known and most persistent variation on the Goatmen story in the United States. Like many other urban legends, the Goatman is fond of lovers' lanes, where he is often spotted by teenage couples. The Maryland Goatman is most frequently associated with stretches of Fletcher Wood Road and Lotsford Road in Prince George's County, areas that were once sparsely populated, but nowadays have as many houses and malls as forested stretches for the Goatmen to lurk. A favorite account claims that the Maryland Goatman was once a scientist named Stephen Fletcher, who worked at the nearby Beltsville Agricultural Research Center conducting DNA experiments on goats, until a tragic accident led to him becoming part goat himself. The center doesn't put much stock into legends, though, at least according to spokesman Kim Coplin, who was quoted in Modern Farmer as saying, "I mean, it's so silly. It's not even something that's joked about." But of course, if the center was indirectly responsible for the creation of the Goatmen, they'd certainly have reason to deny their involvement. After all, no matter what their suppositions about its origins, the stories almost all agree that the Maryland Goatman is bloodthirsty, He is said to roam the back roads, attacking cars with a bloody axe. According to one source, the Maryland Goatman was blamed for the brutal murders of 14 hikers in 1962. Their bodies chopped to pieces, while the Goatman emitted screams that only the devil himself would make. There may not be a lot of evidence to back that one up, but in 1971, a puppy named Ginger was decapitated in the city of Bowie. An incident was covered by the Washington Post, which describes the poor dog as having been decapitated cleanly at the neck. The reporter went on to note that the body was not found. While the article itself speculated that a train might have been responsible, some locals quoted the article pointing the finger at the Maryland Goatman. Now this is Death Lurks Beneath the Trestle, the Pope Lick Monster. In spite of his name, the Pope Lick Monster does not in fact lick the Pope. I know I'm disappointed too, so says the author of this article. Instead, the monster is named for the railroad trestle over Pope Lick Creek, where it is most often sighted. And while the Maryland Goatman may or may not have butchered those 14 hikers back in 1962, the Pope Lick Monster has the distinction of being one of the few cryptids in America who is responsible for several documented deaths, however indirectly. Like the Maryland Goatman, the Pope Lick Monster is described as having the head and legs of a goat with a human body, and like the Maryland Goatman, the Pope Lick Monster is often said to employ a bloody axe, leaping down from the trestle to attack passing cars. Other stories allege that it uses hypnosis or mimics the voice of friends and loved ones to lure its victims onto the railroad bridge and in front of an oncoming train. According to a resident quoted by WDRB.com, teenagers would dare each other to cross the trestle at night, saying that the Pope Lick Monster would reach up from beneath the tracks to grab their ankles and hold them in place until they were hit by a train. As to where the Pope Lick Monster comes from, like its Maryland counterpart, stories vary. Some say the Pope Lick Monster was once a circus performer who escaped after the train that was carrying it derailed on the trestle, while others hold that the monster is the spirit of a farmer who sacrificed goats to the devil in exchange for supernatural powers. Whether or not the Pope Lick Monster is real, it has been the cause of a number of deaths on the railroad trestle running over Pope Lick Creek. Over the years, several legend trippers have died on the trestle while searching for the Pope Lick Monster, with the most recent being just a few months ago in April of 2016. In spite of the legends to the contrary, the tracks are still in regular use by the Norfolk Southern Railroad, who encourage would-be monster hunters to stay off the trestle and warn that trespassers will be arrested for their own safety. So those are two of the goat-type monsters that are out there. Creatures, I don't know, monsters is right or not. It sounds monstrous what it's done, but... So the next one's a little bit different, and I thought this would be neat to include because I haven't done a whole lot about these in our shows, but clearly there's so many accounts of these beings emerging that I thought it would be neat to at least touch on it quick. This is back to reddit.com, and it's a very bizarre Men in Black encounter. I listened to your show last week, and you were talking about the Men in Black. This isn't written to me, so I don't know what show they're referring to. But I'm telling you, my father had a story all throughout my life. This was the early 50s when this happened, and he later went into a very high level of law enforcement. He was a policeman at the time, and he actually saw a UFO, and it was in the paper. We kept that. He was looking up into the sky with this other policeman, and he said it was huge, just huge. The pivotal story is, and I'm thinking now it was connected, that I didn't realize when he'd seen shortly after, or realize what he'd seen shortly after, connected. And it did not connect it with the Men in Black either. He and his buddies went up into the mountains to fish. This was about 6 months later, and they were around the fire. He said it was about 11 o'clock at night, and he said literally out of the bushes and trees, these two men in black, like funeral black, walked up to the fire. And he said the weird thing was, is they had dark glasses on. When he started telling the story, I was about 5 years old, and I'm 68 now. He said they were very pale, long hands, and he poked his buddy and as he pointed down. There was dust everywhere, but the shoes weren't dusty at all. He said it was the creepiest thing. They didn't speak to them. Very tall, very pale, he said. Not monstrous looking, but strange looking. And they didn't speak at all. They were there about maybe 15 minutes in front of the fire. And then they turned and they walked into the bush. He said, I think they disappeared, but I don't know. But it was just strange. But he said, we looked at each other and there was a sense of foreboding, of evil. And he said, let's get the heck out of here. And they left. Well, I guess that was in reference to a Coast to Coast show from March 26th, 2017. So that's really, really current. And it says George Knapp, the host, asked her to clarify the time this event happened and when her father first told her the story. She says, I was 5 or 6 when it happened in 1954, and it was probably in my teens, about 10 years later, and he would tell people he didn't know what it was. He's been dead for about 10 years. Knapp asked if they said anything. They didn't say a word. They just stood there looking at them. And I would think that would be so bizarre. Somebody just standing there looking at you. Not saying a word. Looking like you don't belong. Wearing sunglasses and in the dark. That's fine if you're in a metropolitan area, but in the forest it doesn't quite fit. So very strange indeed. So we're actually heading to the next half-hour break. My God, the time goes so fast. So we're going to be taking another break, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll be back again. So try to cover a few more stories before the end of the show. It's just amazing how fast this time goes, though, isn't it? So don't go away. Sit tight, get a drink, use the restroom. But you're back here for the last half hour of our show. Don't go away. I really miss it during the week then too. You know, I get done with this show tonight and I'll go to sleep and I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll be like, now what? It's like, I don't know. I find such joy in doing the show. It's just been an amazing thing. And I know I say it all the time, and I know that may seem disingenuous due to how much I repeated it, but it's just more of a continual realization that I have that I just really love doing this show. I love doing this and bringing this information to you guys and having the discussions and I don't know, maybe it's raising awareness, maybe it's, you know, doing some good other than just entertainment, but it's just a big part of my world and a big part of my week, and I just can't wait to get back on Fridays and do it again. And we are on Friday and Saturday nights, ladies and gentlemen, 10 p.m. till midnight Pacific Standard Time. So if you haven't heard us on Friday nights before, tune in. Whether you're on iHeart or TFR or TuneIn or whatever means you're using to have a listen, please do, and please continue to tune in. And not only to me, but you know, all the other TFR hosts as well. There's some amazing shows and amazing hosts and a lot of talented people. And it's just a lot of fun to, when I can, I like to listen to all the other shows as well. I wish I had more free time. I would just leave it on all the time, but unfortunately I can't. But when I can, I like to tune in and hear what everyone else is doing. And I tell you, just the intelligence of the people that are doing shows on this network is just mind-numbing. Makes me feel like I'm in the corner with a box of crayons. It's like, oh my God. But no, I'm just really thrilled. So please don't think it's disingenuous, even though I repeat the same things many times, because it couldn't be further from the truth. It's just more like a constant realization of how fortunate I am and so happy to be a part of it. So the next one I'm going to read you is called This Ghost Girl Has Followed Me all my life. And I should probably save stories like this for a night when we're doing ghost stories, because I love, pulling up new and different ones. But it's in the feed here. It's in the thread. And so I'm going to read it now. And this was only submitted 26 days ago. So, by Lolly Humper. I didn't name the person. It's not my fault. I'm just saying it like it is. You know what I'm saying? So it's called Ghost Girl Has Followed Me all my life. When I was 8 to 10 years old, I had this bizarre ghost girl friend. I don't remember what her name was, but nowadays I just refer to her as Purity. So Purity was a pale-skinned girl, about the same age as me. She has black, greasy hair, pretty blue eyes, and a slightly dingy white dress that looked like it was made of torn lace. She looked almost exactly like this. And so they include a picture. Let me see if I can grab it quick and throw it in chat. I guess I can. One moment, please. Girl nightmares. It's under Paranormal Portal. And I'll put it in the chat room if you'd like to see what allegedly this girl looks like. Make sure you're in the TFR chat room. And again, that's truthfrequencyradio.com/chat. So this is allegedly what the girl looks like. It's a painting of a red, almost hellish-looking landscape, but with this woman or girl depicted in a white dress. So now you can see it. And let's see. I got to close this. So she always mentioned being cold and being from someplace with a lot of fog and surrounded by trees. Living in a half-destroyed house. I remember the house looked like it was burnt down, and I specifically remember one room having a black and white tile, possibly the kitchen. However, my strongest memory of her is how cold she was. She always complained about it. What's so unusual about her is the fact that I was really an innocent child. I was lonely, sure, but there was no way I could have been able to imagine her, since I was too innocent at the time to make up someone as depressing as her. Let's see. She left me after maybe a month or two, and when I was about 16 years old, memory of her came back to me like a ton of bricks. At the time, I felt a heavy sense of guilt, as if I somehow killed her, and was borderline obsessed with this girl and who she was. I slowly gave up, but I never quite got her off my mind ever since. I'm 18 now. She seems to come around whenever I'm depressed, and she won't stop accusing me of somehow abandoning her when she needed me the most. I can't see a picture of a girl in a white dress without memory of her rushing back to me. Despite all this, I, for some reason, don't want her to leave me. I suppose her memory is kind of comforting to me, as she was the only friend I had at the time. It's making me sad that I'm slowly losing memory of her, and I fear that I may have already forgotten key parts of her. The reason I know that her memory is fading is from rereading my old diary entries that mention her and finding key aspects of her that I've forgotten. This is normal, as I've had memory issues throughout my life. To this day, I'm still not really sure what she is, though I'm open to any suggestions as to what she might be. Disturbingly enough, I've had multiple people tell me she's a snow demon called a Yoriona. That doesn't make sense considering I don't live close to snow or Japan. Here's a drawing I found of her in an old diary entry. Ignore the fact that she has no legs. She has legs. I know I'm not sure why I didn't add them in the drawing. I'm not going to add the drawing. Whenever I talk or write or sometimes even think about her, I start shivering and spazzing out of control, and parts of my body become harder to control and become sore, as if I'm freezing cold. So if there are any typos or grammatical errors in this, that is why. That, and with her being on my mind right now, it's really hard to think straight. That's peculiar, but I know a lot of people think that, and I suppose someone like Deb would be more geared to answer this more thoroughly, but I think that a lot of times spirits become earthbound because they don't know they're dead, or they have some issue with their passing has left them feeling that they have unfinished business or whatever. It's the same cliche answers, but I believe that there's truth to it. And so I think that it's very probable or possible, and I don't know if this, this author is male or female, but perhaps they, with their issues or with business to take care of, find people that embody those things and latch onto them. And perhaps this girl had an issue with a lost love, perhaps if he was a guy, or if it's a guy that wrote the story, or perhaps a sibling or parent if it's a girl. And so the fact that a spirit would latch onto somebody because they feel that there's some kind of connection, or there's some, missing part of their life that they need to finish in order to pass completely through to the other side. I don't know. But definitely a curious story, and certainly not unique. There's many, many accounts of things like that. The next one is called The Red-Eyed Creature. Hey everyone, it's my first time posting here, and my native language is not English, so please be patient with me. I was glad to see that there was a subreddit of this kind of creature. What I saw in 2013 is something that still bothers me today, and my brain won't simply put it aside as a weird dream. So I live in Portugal, Azores, during the summer, and I go to an island called Santa Maria. It was July 20 to 30th, and I can't remember the exact day. I never keep track of the days during summer. It was a hot summer night, sweating my brains off while laying on the couch, watching Mythbusters on Discovery Channel at 3 a.m. I was definitely awake. Thus, why I can't just brush this off as a weird dream. To make sure you understand a bit more of the scenario, my kitchen and living room are separated by a counter. You can see the whole kitchen while laying down on the couch, at least the counter and above. The only light I had was a small lamp on a table at the end of the couch. It was really weak, just enough to not hit my little toe against the furniture if I wanted to go pee at night. It was around 3 a.m. when something on the kitchen caught my eye. I look over and focus my eyes to try and understand what it was, and when my eyes focused in the dark, this is what I saw: a black, shadowy figure with blood-red eyes drinking water, or at least it looked like he was chugging down something. Now, this may sound absurd, right? Yeah, I know, my brain didn't process it right away. But before I could even react, this thing probably realized I was looking at it and just dropped what he was holding and ran through the back door, faster than lightning. I stood up in a bit of shock and slowly walked into the kitchen. The back door was definitely open, and I flipped the switch to the kitchen lights and looked on the ground. There was a broken glass and a small pool of water on the ground. I looked back at the back door and all the remaining windows and doors. Or I locked, rather, the back door and all the remaining windows and doors. I went back to my couch and just sat there till the sun slowly started to raise into the sky. Till today, I have absolutely no idea what the thing was. Never seen it since that day, and made some research, but really didn't find out much. Anyone know what it was? And as an edit, he said, I forgot to mention that the door was closed, not locked, but closed. And like I said in the replies, we don't have animals big enough to be able to open a door by itself. And no, I did not realize the door had opened. That's very strange. I don't know. And it did pass through the door, as he says. It was closed, but not locked. And what spirit would need to drink water, and how would it drink water? I don't know. I'm not familiar with many tales like that, so this is more of a perplexing one to me. The next one is called creepy encounter with someone who appeared to not have a face. This is a pretty short one. It says, me and my sisters both of my parents live in Australia. My mom's American, so we have a lot of family in America. San Luis Obispo, California mainly. That would have taken place in late January, early February of 2015, and at the same time, all of us were living in Brisbane and decided to visit. The best friend of one of my sisters was invited to join us, which is fairly important to the story. When we went to visit our grandparents, uncle, aunt, and a few of our cousins who were living together at the time, immediately to the right of their house is a wooded area with a path leading through it. One of our cousins works at the local supermarket and that was within walking distance. So me and my sisters and a few of our cousins decided to get a tub of ice cream for dessert that night, and we set off as the sun was about to set. We get the ice cream and we decide to go to our cousins' till to get served. Oh, okay. Get checked out at the cousins' till. Got it. Nothing of great importance there. On our way home, just as we get to the wooded area next to our grandparents' uncle's aunt's cousin's house, I see what appeared to be a faceless woman just staring at us. Kind of creeped. I sped up a bit to catch up to my sister's best friend. She asked me in a whisper, "Did you see her too?" I just nodded because that's when I knew I wasn't imagining it. And that's a very strange encounter. It just boggles my imagination to think of the variety of things that might be out there. And maybe it's not quite as many as it appears, because, when you think of the idea of shape-shifting or appearing in other ways, maybe that's, maybe it's a handful of creatures that can mimic themselves into many different creatures. I don't know, but still, there's so much to this world that we just don't know. We are just on the fringe of discovering, I think, universes within our own. And what I think is happening is that, I think, my personal opinion about what this stuff is that I think our world is literally filled with what, for lack of a better term, portals. And I realize the show is Paranormal Portal, and it's not a shameless plug to try to make the name more profound, but I think there are portals, dimensional portals or whatever, that exist naturally within our world into other worlds. And the reason that I've really hung on to that theory is because I think about the stories of people seeing things like pterodactyls. And these are, huge winged creatures. And if they were truly still, a part of our world constantly, somewhere, somehow, sometime, somebody would have, gotten good pictures, would have seen them, would have seen where they roost and nest, because this is a pterodactyl. It's not a overly intelligent creature. It's just an oversized bat or bird that's just trying to get by. So it's not going to think, hey, I want to avoid people a whole bunch. It's just going to think, well, I need to get back and feed this fish to the kids. And so it's not like, something that's learned to be stealthy because of a need. It's so if these things were truly here all the time, we would have seen, heard, had proof of something, but we don't. And so what I think is going on is that there's these portals that exist, and they may be, time, space portals, and things may cross through from time to time from these other space times and appear in our world. And I think there are intelligent things as well. But I don't know. Just my opinion, and I don't pretend to know what that's worth, but it's the only thing I can think of that even would start to make any kind of sense. This one is called The Light People. Okay, so the following information was forwarded to me. I saw a repost of your recent Illuminated Humanoid story on the Humanoid Encounters subreddit recently. I saw something really similar and wanted to share. I'm just going to copy and paste the post on Reddit I made about it. There are a lot of similarities between encounters. I want to ask about some more details. There's something to this stuff, not that there isn't to most paranormal stuff, but I know I saw this, and I want to see what other details he or she noticed if possible. Maybe something could be a clue, or at least more information, like how they moved, what the witnesses were thinking, anything, what colors they were glowing, and from what angle or how far the glow went. So he said, this happened in summer of 2013. I had a buddy who was hanging out with me a few days, and at some point one night we decided to walk around the block. It's a pretty quiet suburban neighborhood. Once we started walking down the middle of the street, everything got strangely quiet. No crickets, frogs, wind, nothing. It seemed like the breeze stopped as well. We kept walking, and about halfway down the street is where we saw them. There was a minivan in a driveway with the hood up, and there were these two things peering into the engine like they were studying it. They were white, and they had no faces. There was a soft glow coming off them, like they were reflecting a backlight. But it seemed like there wasn't really a source for it. The white flowers in the yard had the same glow. They looked about normal height, 2 arms, 2 legs, and they sort of jumped when we came into view, like they were surprised. Then they half hid behind the van, and me and my friend both immediately had this feeling like we could not look at them no matter what. That was probably the most scared I have ever been. I'm usually not someone who would react this way. I would snap a pic or run and look closer or something, but we couldn't let them see us seeing them. We both kept walking forward and watched out for the corner of our eyes, and they watched us, while also trying to position themselves behind the van. I got the impression that they weren't used to hiding much, because they would look at us and then look into the van, then at themselves, then crouch behind the van a little more. We kept walking, looking dead ahead until we got to the end of the street, and all the sound came back, and I could feel the breeze again, and everything felt normal. I wasn't really sure if I was going to say anything to my friend, but at the same second everything went back to normal. We both stopped and exhaled really hard. So he felt that as well. I asked him if he saw those white people, and for most of the walk home, he wouldn't talk about it. He'd just tell me to shut up. That we weren't supposed to talk about it, couldn't talk about it. I kind of felt like I shouldn't as well. That and the fear when I saw them were strange emotions. I can't explain why, but they just felt different than normal feelings or thoughts. I have no idea what these things were. I have heard other stories like it, really, and I know they were real. Normal human guys in white suits and with black lights couldn't have made me feel that strange. And they couldn't shut off the sound like that. I don't know. We didn't talk about it a lot. But earlier this year we did, and I told him the story like I remembered it. He pretty much freaked out and asked me if I remembered them crossing the street in front of us, which I still do not. He told me it was right after he fell or laid down or whatever, and all of a sudden I remembered right before we saw them, I looked over and he was laying down on the side of the road, stiff as a board and not responding to anything I was saying, just blinking really, really hard. I thought he was joking around at first, but after a few seconds, I got a bit worried. Eventually he got up and we just kept walking. I didn't ask him if he was okay, and he didn't say anything or explain. When he hit the ground was about the time things got quiet and weird feeling. And I don't have any clue how he hit the ground, neither does he. I don't know how I could forget that part. I've gone over and over that night in my head 1,000,000 times since then. But as soon as he said that, it came back to me. I've no clue what they were, but that was the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me. Not really any identical stories on the internet that I can find, which is strange. So do these kind of creatures live in our dimension? Do they pass through our dimension? Are they multidimensional? I don't know. Very, very curious. Like I said, it's the variety of these stories that I find so compelling and so interesting. And again, you can't believe everything. You can't believe every one of these stories is legitimate, but they're out there. And if only a small percentage of them are, it's still incredibly profound because it speaks to a world that we really don't understand, that exists within or alongside or dynamically throughout our world. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it or what really to think, but clearly there's something going on that many, many people are experiencing, and that's the beauty of the paranormal, is you can't plan for it. You can't schedule it. It just occurs when it occurs. And so I hope that when it occurs for people, it's occurring at a time when they need it the most, when they need to open their eyes and when they need to see the world differently. And that'll create change. At least I hope it will. But that's going to about wrap it up for tonight's show. And I just want to thank you all for being here and being a part of it. Whether you're listening from Truth Frequency Radio or iHeart or TuneIn, we're thrilled to be a part of all of these channels and getting our message out there and being a part of the truth movement in the interwebs. Excuse me. I really can't sing Aerosmith anymore. That's just it. New rule, no Aerosmith. That's it. But we'll be back again next week, ladies and gentlemen, for another show next Friday. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. You have a good night, and thanks for being here. Thanks to everybody that's in the chat room. Those of you that are new and have stopped in, thanks for checking it out. I really enjoyed seeing some new names and new faces, and hope to get to know you all eventually. Eventually, I will meet you all. Yeah. No, it's not. Ken, the problem is it's not late. I was running around the house singing really loud, and I screwed up my voice just in time for the show. So thank you all for being here. And again, we'll be back next Friday night, 10 Pacific to midnight Pacific. So hope to see you guys then. Theoretically, not literally, but, unless you happen to pop in or whatever. But we'll have many more adventures of the paranormal realm waiting for you next weekend. So I hope you guys have a good week. Be really good to each other. I love you all. Be nice. Be kind. Make the world a better place. And we'll be back for another journey next week into the paranormal portal. Don't be afraid. I'll be with you, I promise. Thanks, Blue Raven. Appreciate it. Thank you for stopping in. It's great to meet you. Love you all. Be good. We'll talk to you soon.